Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host, HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And, we've talked about some shows, we've talked about anime, we've talked about a bunch of stuff, but we never actually talked about video games unless you count the Sonic movie events I did. So, you know what? Let's talk about video games because we're gamers, we like video games. I'm pretty sure most of the population likes video games these days. Let's talk
Berkcast
about them.
Gaming Channel. When? Probably never.
Well, never say never.
eh,
Just did, but who knows? Who knows?
we're
Um,
hypocrites here. They're used to it.
yeah,
We've said plenty of
yeah,
things we're not going to do and then did, or things that we would do and then didn't do. It's our MO here.
yep. Well, anyway, so video games, Wolf. What is your gaming history? Like, how did you become a gamer?
um, so when I was younger, it was very on and off, right? Like I would play a bit here and there, but I would never stick with it. It wouldn't be until I got somewhat older that I would probably stick with it more, I guess you would say, and like, have it be more of my have it take up more of my off time and be willing to play games way more than what I used to when I was somewhat younger. But when I was somewhat younger, I think the first console I ever owned was the Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first console I ever owned. That was, my first introduction to gaming. After that, it would be the Nintendo 64. But yes, I am old enough to have played on stuff like the Atari and the Sega Genesis. I do know those exist. I did play on them rarely, but not when they came out. When I was not when they came out because I'm not that old, but I did play them when I was older because people I knew had them and I wanted to try them because they
I
looked like
think the
neat things.
yeah, I think the Genesis is 2 years older than you.
Yep. And the Atari systems are even older than that.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm not that old. I'm old,
Mm-hmm.
not that old. But yeah, I definitely started with Nintendo. Like many people, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to bust your bubble on that, but there's
I
a
said
reason
many,
for
not
that.
all.
Yeah. And basically, the thing with me is that video games aren't much of a big thing here. Like they are becoming a thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that one would consider a pop culture.
Mm.
If so the thing is that when I grew up, most of the games I had were licensed games, like all the movie-based games, all the show-based
You
games.
poor,
Like
poor soul.
it wasn't always that. It
No,
wasn't only
no.
that.
Some of those
But
games
the
are
thing is,
pretty decent.
like the ones that come to mind are the Aladdin and Lion King games, for
Mm.
example. Those were great,
Yeah.
and
Back when
and
they cared about movie license games.
yeah, and when they were extremely hard, I'm looking at you, level 2 of the Lion King. The 16-bit version of Can't Wait to Be King is amazing, but that level can suck it. But the thing is that, yeah, I was more with licensed games at the beginning, and actually, people that know me know that Sonic the Hedgehog is my favorite character. I was actually introduced to Sonic through the TV shows, not the games, and I wouldn't know he was a game until 90, maybe even 2000,
See,
honestly.
there are a lot of Sonic fans that now understand this is why he likes the Sonic Adventure games.
Okay. First of all, fuck you. Sonic Adventure is great, and we will we'll probably get to that one at one point. But the thing is that, but the first video game proper that I played is the original Rayman,
Mm.
which people who know me know that besides Sonic, Rayman is my favorite character. So yeah, there you go. And so I played the original Rayman. Ironically enough, I got it sale. Like I got the video game based on Tarzan, Disney's Tarzan from
Mm.
And apparently they gave us like free game with it. I'm not sure why, but win. And then I realized, oh, there's like a game that exists from a game. It's not based on anything, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And the thing with Nintendo is that Nintendo for a long time wasn't a thing here. Like we
Hmm.
only had the only like thing that like there may have been consoles that you could buy, but in the main stores, the thing that was officially brought over was the PlayStation stuff.
Mm.
So I played plenty of PlayStation One stuff at a friend's house because he had a PlayStation. And, the Crash Bandicoots, the Spyro, not really, even though I always gravitated towards Spyro more. But but there was this, and then for my 10th birthday, I asked for a PlayStation 2,
Hmm.
which I got, and I loved the damn thing, and I was a PlayStation guy ever since. And I think with the PlayStation, I did get into gaming more seriously, and I started playing stuff that wasn't just licensed stuff. I do have some licensed game I like. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, that's basically the gist of that.
I think, right, even for me, right, like the PlayStation 2 was a big system growing up for me as well, because yeah, I played games from, yeah, I owned a GameCube as well. Like I got into, like I said, I was definitely a Nintendo fan, was always going to be a Nintendo fan. It's where I started at, and yeah, it's
But
still where I'm
something,
at
actually,
now.
the Nintendo stuff that was here, I'm not sure if officially brought, but the Nintendo thing that was here a lot were the handhelds, and I did grow up with the handheld,
Mm.
like
Yeah,
the Game
yep.
Boy, Game Boy
The Game
Color.
Boy, the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color. Yeah, I remember all those. I remember that big bulky gray thing. I owned one of those. That was ridiculous, but that was, I think we mostly only owned it. Yeah, mostly only, pretty much only owned it for Pokemon. That's what that was for.
Um,
Then the Game Boy Color came out and owned that for
you know
Pokemon too.
something, you know how I said that I knew Sonic from the show. There are still people that argue with me that the Pokemon games are based on the anime, and I want to smack their heads against the wall
Nope.
until they realize they're
Anime
wrong.
is based on the games. Surprisingly
Yeah, that's
enough.
what I'm saying. But people didn't know what Pokemon was here until the anime. Because
Mm.
if you were into gaming here, you had a PlayStation or a good PC.
I mean, I think
Like,
that's with a lot of people though. Like the PS2 was one of the, or is the best-selling console ever. I think, even still now, like it sold the most
yeah,
units. Like it was
and
still being
rightfully
sold. Like
so.
back in 2016, it was still being made and
Yeah.
sold in some places. That's
Something.
insane.
I think the last game that was made for the PS2 was, I want to say, 2010,
Yeah.
maybe even 2011.
Like the
I'm
PS2
not sure.
was it was a fun console. Like there was just so many games for it, and I think myself as well as many others would say like that's where they had a lot of their, I guess you'd call it gaming first. Like they tried out this particular game first, and it's what got them into that genre, right?
Like, yeah, like I can tell you, I tried a lot on my PS2 because not a lot of them was on PC, and a lot of my favorite franchises are PlayStation exclusives, like
Mm-hmm.
Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter. I love those series, and I got exposed to them on the PS2 where they were born, and
Yeah,
I love them.
yeah. Action, story-driven, character-driven platformers. Like that was the PS2's bread and butter, and that was basically like I used to not. I didn't hate platformers, but they weren't my favorite thing in the world. Like Mario was fun, but I remember playing it, but I never really got into it. My little brother loves it to death, but it was never my thing. But what got me into platformers was Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter, Spyro. Less
Yeah,
Crash. I never
because
really had much of experience with Crash, but Spyro, Jack and Daxter, and Ratchet and Clank, like those were the three
I
that got
think
me into it.
Yeah, and I think Ratchet and Jack, mostly Ratchet because it's the one that had their weapons out. I think that
Mm-hmm.
also kind of changed the genre in a sense because
Well, it
you
made
know
things. Yeah, I would agree. Like it set up the idea that these don't just have to be platforming levels; they can have more of a story behind them. Like I think without Jack and
And
Dax or without Spyro, without Ratchet and Clank, like you wouldn't have Super Mario Odyssey, right? Like that's way more story
yeah,
driven now.
I'll even argue Crash to an
Yeah,
extent
like yeah,
because
Crash as well.
you check the animations on the original Crash PS1 games, like the facial animations were revolutionary for the time.
Yeah. But I mean, like, yeah, like they helped define the genre and helped, like, basically say, hey, platformers can be more character driven, even more story driven than what they are now. Like Mario might be the, grandfather or the father of platforming, but it definitely isn't what completely shaped it, right?
Yeah, like you could say that Mario 64 deserves credit for being the first 3D platformer
Oh,
and
absolutely.
how we viewed 3D platformers.
Like,
But
yeah, Mario's
uh,
definitely left its mark. Absolutely.
mhm.
As has, like,
but
Zelda, it's left its mark on the, open, on the adventure genre stuff,
yeah,
Like, Zelda's
like
absolutely left its mark.
it's kind of funny when you mention Zelda and how much it shaped the way we look at adventure games because now every game like the games that people will call the Zelda clone and stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that every game in the genre is basically a Zelda clone,
I
right?
mean, it's the same, it's the same, right? Like with Dark Souls now, like we have, Dark Souls kind of created its own genre at this point. Like people refer to it's a
Can
Dark
we
Souls
talk?
like.
Can we talk about the fact that just because a game is hard, it's now Dark Souls, and it's like this is stupid. This
I
is
get where
so
you're coming
stupid.
from, but it does kind of give like a bit of a naming culture, I suppose. And I think right, like some people have tried to differentiate it more. Like people say, oh, it's not just Dark Soul. It's not just a Dark Souls like because it's hard. It's a Dark Souls like because it kind of uses the whole you explore an open
Yeah.
world that opens up as you go
Oh no
further
no no
into
no.
it.
Like in that case, I understand.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen people
But
calling what was that Neo or something. How do you pronounce it? Like there was a
Neo,
game
I don't know what you're talking.
Neo. Yeah.
I don't know what you're
Uh,
talking about. So
Basically, yeah, from what I've heard, it's kind of like Dark Souls genre game, so that I understand. But then people say that Cuphead is like Dark Souls, and I'm like,
I think that was just a
yeah,
joke.
like no. People base that joke on something. There were people comparing the two, and it's like just because both of them are hard doesn't mean they're the same thing. Like,
Agreed.
yeah.
Absolutely agreed. If you're doing it
Uh,
unironically, then yeah, you're being silly. But if you're doing it
or
ironically, then
like the people who this I know is real because a friend linked it to me before it became a meme that there was a site that said that the Crash remakes are as hard as Dark Souls, and I'm like,
oh god.
uh, what? Orange marsupial, Dark Souls, yeah, definitely, best comparison ever, 10 out of 10, great.
Have you seen that face? He's definitely ate some souls at some point or another.
I guess the best thing I can say to that is, whoa.
Fair enough. Um, I guess yeah, that's kind of like yeah, that's somewhat of our history with games. I guess like I don't think I have too much more to add other than like it's just kind of grown
Yeah,
from there.
yeah. I said mine. It was kind of a hobby that was mostly, more of a movie or a show I liked. But after that,
Yeah, I
it
think
became something else.
what was the first game you ever played?
Like, do you mean in general,
In
or
general, the first well,
Okay.
you know what? Let's be
The,
the first game that you played that really got that like hey, this is a thing I want to see more of. What was that game? The game that said, yeah, I want
so
more
like
of this. I want to see
so
more of
like I
this.
said, I think the game that really, you know, really got me into it because I realized it's a game first and everything else second. Was again Rayman,
Hmm.
and this was a game that the first Rayman is bullshit hard at some points. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie,
it
but
is absolutely.
mhm. But it was still a game that I wanted. Me and friends tried to keep going. We tried to beat it. One of my friends did. I never beat the original game. I beat, I beat everything else since, but not the original. Because when I got to the last level and they told me I need to get all the cages, I said "fuck you" and moved on. But
Fair enough.
um,
I know that feeling.
not that the original Rayman is a bad game. It's great,
No, but I get
but
what you mean. It is very hard. It is a very
yeah,
hard game. For those who have played it, they'll probably
yeah.
know. If you haven't, go
And
try it out.
then
You'll love it.
yeah, yeah. Just try everything Rayman out. Rayman is amazing, and
Yeah.
he deserves more love. Get to it, Ubisoft. No, Mini Rayman doesn't count. Apple TV bullshit. Give me a real game, please. Thank you. But I'm very salty about this, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the thing, but also, when all of a sudden I walk through a store and I see all of a sudden Rayman 2, it's like, oh, there's more of this. And it's 3D. What is this 3D thing? Like Rayman 2 was basically my first 3D platformer. And people who know me know that Rayman 2 is my second favorite game of all time. I love this game. Even to this day, like you can let me play it any day of the week, and I will. I love this game so much. It's such a great game. Depending on what version of the many versions of it you play, that is. And I personally, my favorite version is the PS2 version. But yeah. So I guess Rayman falls into that category because that was the one which was like, oh, there's more of this, and I can only get it through a game. There are no movies. There was a TV show, but it failed after 4 episodes, and it never aired here, so that doesn't count. But yeah, there was a Rayman TV show. Be very afraid. But yeah, but the thing is that also Rayman 3 at the start was a PS2 was a console exclusive here. Like the PC version came out much later, so and Rayman 3 was my first PS2 game. It was so that was also pretty influential on me. That this is the first console game I really got into, and it was like the game that I wanted to run away from school from just so I could play it again. So yeah, I'll say that if there's a franchise that influenced my gaming history the most, it's probably Rayman.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I think that's a good pick. I'm trying to think of the name of mine. I think I remember it. Let me make sure this is it before I say it. Yes, this is the name of it. Okay. So, yeah, like I said before, like my journey kind of started with the Super Nintendo. I played some of the games on it, and I loved a lot of the games on it, right? But I never really got into them per se. I never like they never really grabbed me. Like I enjoyed the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I played through it. I played through Kirby
Great game
on the Superstar. I played through Kirby
on the
Superstar
Superstar.
on the Super Nintendo. I played through Mario as well, and a bunch of other different Super Nintendo games as well. Played through. I remember Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo. That was fun, but I never.
Actually, there are Super Nintendo games I played on a PC. There was like a PC port of them. So like I'm not. Most of them, were the licensed games, like I said, the Disney stuff and everything. But one that I remember, the PC was actually Super Mario World. With I think that and the Super Mario All Stars collection. That was the first 3 Mario games, including last levels in 16-bit. That there was this kind of like a daycare after school thing that like after school there will be this ride that brings you to like a daycare.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so there was the Super Mario All Stars, and I think it was the version that also had the Super Mario World on it. So we played a lot of that in there. and also Mortal Kombat. That was, Mortal Kombat was one of those things that, it's so violent. We kids, we love violence.
Yeah. The game that started the whole games are too violent, we need to ban them thing in the US.
Yeah. Something, it is kind of funny that then, I just have a flashback to when we were playing it, and all of us as kids were like, oh my god, we blew this guy's head off. Like, yeah. Different cultures, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, here in the US, right, like that was definitely overblown. And it was very much, everyone defended it as overblown, and it was overblown because, like, they pointed at Night Trap as being too graphic for, gaming and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Night Trap, of all things, right, is the hill people decided to die on, and died on it they did because they got nowhere. But they did at least create, a ratings board for games and things like that.
And, I think time, even though I didn't play it because I'm not into horror much, but another game that a lot of my friends played was Doom. That's
Doom's not horror. Nothing. Doom's not horror.
Well, okay, you know what? Fair enough. I just got the idea. Maybe it was a bit scary for me because I couldn't see the character.
I mean, that's
I was
fair.
A scaredy cat.
Like that's fair. Like if Doom's like if Doom scares you, I completely get it. It can definitely be overwhelming at times, having seen it and played some of it myself.
Keep in mind, I'm talking about 6-7 year olds.
Oh yeah, that's completely fair.
You
probably shouldn't be a 6 or 7 year old playing Doom.
Yeah, well, my friends played it, and I felt more comfortable, watching from the side rather than.
I get that. Back to me though, jeez, HC.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
But like the game that I think really got me into gaming, that kind of showed me like, hey, I want to see more of this. I want to experience more of this and see where it can go. And really the genre that has basically been with me ever since, right? A genre that I continue to come back to all the time is, the JRPG genre, the Japanese RPG genre, and the first ever one I played, Legend of the Dragoon. I know it's not Final Fantasy. What? I didn't play Final Fantasy on the Super Nintendo. I'm going to disappoint a lot of people right now. Final Fantasy was not my first JRPG. My first JRPG was a JRPG that has never gotten a game since, has just died in obscurity. I think it's, at this point, Sony owns the rights. Thanks, Sony. Make something, please. But yeah, the Legend of the Dragoon. That was my first ever JRPG game, and that was the game that said, yeah, I want to see more of this. And that was on the PlayStation.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Actually, talking about RPGs, this is the one genre that I never got into. And it's not necessarily because I think RPGs are bad. No, like there are a lot of great quality RPGs there, like we've just mentioned Final Fantasy. There are the Tales series.
Oh, you mentioned those. We can talk about Tales. I know Tales. I've played some of Tales recently. I've gotten into Tales. One? I've started with the, if I'm not mistaken, let me check and make sure, because they recently released on Steam, the Tales of the Sky series is what I've started with.
Mm-hmm.
Or no.
Okay.
No, no, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the Tales series. I'm talking about the... Never mind. Those are two different series. Ignore me. I'm going to make people mad. I'm getting my JRPGs confused. I'm old.
Just to clarify.
I'm talking about the Legend of the... Let me see. Yeah, I'm talking about the Legend of Heroes series.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm talking about the Tales of the Abyss, Tales of Symphony.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. I'm old.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break. I'm allowed to get my things confused.
Okay, fair enough. But on that note, I never really connected with RPGs. And again, it's not necessarily because the games are bad. Not at all. Like, they have a lot of good qualities to them, and I can see why people like them. They're just not my thing. Like, I can't see myself grinding. and it's not the game's fault. This is their attention. I'm just a lazy asshole. I just want to get to the next stage.
I think
That's
a
really
lot of
it.
JRPGs have fixed that in more recent years, but I think right some one thing I've noticed that some JRPGs and RPGs have decided to do is make things more action heavy, right? Which is why we have something that exists, which is why we have a thing that exists, which is Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, but Kingdom Hearts is more it like kind of created its own thing where it's action RPG rather than an
I mean,
RPG.
Kingdom Hearts didn't create
Because
that.
uh,
Diablo, I mean, action
well,
RPG exists because Diablo, if I'm not mistaken. Action RPGs came
okay,
way
fair
before
enough.
Kingdom Hearts. But
Okay,
like, I get
I'm
what
not
you're
really
you're getting at.
I'm
Like,
not I'm not familiar with Diablo much because action RPGs I do like. I play Kingdom Hearts, like another one that I was supposed to last year, and Nier Automata. That was a great game.
mm-hmm. Hello.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm waiting for you to respond.
I
What
mean,
do
I
you
said
have to say?
you said you played Nier Automata, and you said it was a good game, and I said, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't have anything to add. Do you
Oh,
want
I
to
mean,
continue?
I thought you had more to add after that. Um,
Well, like I said, my experience with RPGs, and that I actually kind of like
I mean,
RPGs, but again,
if
uh,
we're moving into our experience with different genres, right? Then
mhm,
like a lot of the games I have played have been in the action RPG or JRPG or just in general RPG genre. Like that's what I gravitate towards the most. I enjoy if it's more Western style RPGs like Fable, right? Like I enjoy the idea of being able to role play a character and kind of play that role out throughout the story or just play that role out within the world I'm given, right? And if
mhm,
it's more of a story driven RPG that has a set character, like say The Witcher 3, I played through that, loved every minute of that, and at least enjoyed a lot of it, and it's very much like I enjoy the idea of playing through that story and just getting to see things and experiencing those different worlds. It's why I did gravitate eventually towards Final Fantasy and played many of the different Final Fantasies at this point. I've played Final Fantasy 6. I've played Final Fantasy 7. I've played Final Fantasy.
when
No,
when you say six, do you mean what was released in America as three?
if I'm not mistaken, let me make sure. People are going to hear a lot of typing this episode, I'm sure.
Yeah, but despite not really being a fan of
Yes.
RPGs, okay.
Known as. Yes, the one that was known as Final Fantasy 3 in North America. Yes, that's the one.
That was stupid, Now that I
Oh, yeah, it was
back at it.
dumb, but at the same time, Square didn't think, right? Like, Square was that Enix.
Yeah.
One of the two, right? They didn't think North American audiences would enjoy JRPGs. That's why we got Final Fantasy. No, what was it? Final Fantasy. It was
Like
something
I know,
for
I
the
know
Super
that two.
Nintendo. Final Fantasy
I know that
Crystal.
two. I'm not sure, but I know two became one, four became two, and six became three. That's what I know.
Or was it Adventure? It was a Super Nintendo game. Was that it? You know what? I have it laying right over here. Why don't I just get up and walk over here and look?
Research in the middle of the episode because we need to figure out what was that one Final Fantasy game called.
I know.
But
Mystic Quest is what it was called. You're welcome as I
oh,
walk back
okay.
over to the mic and probably sound very weird. It was called Mystic Quest. That was, if I'm not mistaken, the history behind that is, Square didn't, or Square Enix, whoever it was at the time, didn't think that, North American audiences would like JRPGs or would get it, right? They thought we were dumb, essentially. And so they gave us a really dumbed down version of, their JRPG genre. And so we got Mystic Quest here in North America. That was that was the first JRPG I ever played. Didn't like it. Wasn't really my thing. Didn't care for it as much. But then we got some of the later JRPG stuff like Final Fantasy 3 or 6, whichever you like to call it, and stuff like that. And that's when people started to get way more into it, and also like that helped pave the way for the popularity that is Final Fantasy VII, which I've still never played all the way through.
Same, but that's because again I'm much into RPGs. But you
I
know
mean,
the
I'm a
thing,
JRPG
but
fan, and I've not played it. I've played Final Fantasy VIII. I've played Final Fantasy VI. I've played Final Fantasy not 9. Gonna make more people mad. I've played Final Fantasy X. That's gonna make people mad.
I
Played Final
like
Fantasy.
I actually if we are on that topic, I had a bit of experience with 10 as well.
I played Final Fantasy 12 also, the Star Wars of Final Fantasy. That's basically what that game is. That game is Star Wars. You'll never convince me otherwise. That game is Final Fantasy's version of Star Wars. That's what Final Fantasy 12 is. So if you want the Final Fantasy version of Star Wars, just go play Final Fantasy 12 and you can see how they see Star Wars. Because that's what that game is.
Yeah, but
You literally have that game has its own that game has sexy Chewbacca. That's what that game has. That game decided to say, "Hey, we need our Han Solo and Chewbacca character. Here's Han Solo. Here's basically a rabbit girl who is his Chewbacca. It's sexy Chewbacca. That's what it is. That's what that game created."
I have to say, I'm never touching that game.
You broke up, so no one knows what you said.
I said that you convinced me. I am not touching that game.
Final Fantasy 12 is actually really good.
Nothing against the joke because you said you have to play it because of the sexy Chewbacca, and I'm like,
I mean, you do.
No,
you have to now.
No, but I will say that I do want to give Final Fantasy VII Remake a shot when that comes out, whenever it comes out.
That's fair.
And I did want to give 50 a shot, but man, there are so many stuff regarding that game. Like, there are so many DLCs. It's like, what do I get when I just buy the game, you know?
Give what a shot
That's
now?
actually Final Fantasy 15.
Ah.
So, okay, he just sent me the picture of, and yeah.
Her name is Fran.
I'm not sleeping tonight, thank you.
What? You act like this looks like a disturbing creature. It's just a bunny girl. That's what it is. That's, your Japanese sort of deal there. Bunny girl. That's, what you expect from Japan sometimes.
Fair. What more can I say? Actually, you know what's you know something. Considering all the Pokemon that Japan can fall out for every generation, there's a Pokemon that's basically a keychain.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not surprised anymore.
There's a Pokemon that's also a vanilla ice cream cone.
Yep.
There's a literal garbage Pokemon. Like, he's actually just a trash bag. His name is even Trubbish.
Everything is a Pokemon. My chair is...
Not yet. We've not had a chair-shaped Pokemon yet. Maybe one day.
It will come. It will come. Trust me, it will come because it's Pokemon. And Pokemon has a lot of weird design.
Yeah, but that's what makes it fun, is some of the silly stuff as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Actually, something that I did want to ask you, how many video game shows did you watch? Not shows based on video games, like video news.
Video game news shows. I mean,
do you remember G4?
Do I remember what now? I think I know what you said,
G4.
but yes, I remember G4. I watched G4 growing up. I remember G4.
Dude, we had this
Attack of the Show.
No. Yeah, Attack of the Show, the Judgment Day. I love Judgment Day so much.
That was one of those weird times in video games where you can't do something like that now, I don't think. I don't think anything like that would sell now, but back then it sold and it worked, at least for a time.
Yeah, because the channel later just closed down.
It's gone now. You'll never see any of those things ever again. You might be able to find them online and watch them online, but it's gone.
I managed to find some Judgment Day stuff on YouTube. No, but when I think about G4 and another show called Cybernet, which also reviewed video games. That also got me more into gaming. And but we had a G4 known. We had a channel here, but it was called Game One, and like we had some local shows that we had we had Judgment Day and Icon, the show, and X Play. Man, I loved X Play back then. And like we had all of those shows, come on, brought over and translated. But then, man, what did I want to say?
Hello, buzzing. That's twice now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, people. People don't know I'm recording, and they message me on Instagram because why not? But back to the topic of video game review shows. I just remember watching that channel all the time, and I was introduced to a lot of franchises through reviews on that channel. And I like shoot because they were great.
I mean, it was YouTube before YouTube became a thing, kind of, right? Or before YouTube got really big. Like that was like what you saw on that channel was what a lot of YouTubers do now, really.
Yeah, because when you think about it, the thing that pretty much started the video game reviews was James Wolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Yeah.
And that he did make his first review in 2004, but he first came onto YouTube on 2006. So, and as far as I remember, Judgment Day was still going on. So I think I think when he started, that channel was kind of starting to fade away, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly, but yeah, you know what? You have a point. You have a point.
I mean, yeah, like I think if you say like to someone who grew up with that channel somewhat, like many people, you could say Adam Sessler or Morgan Webb even, and like people would know those names, like they would remember them because they were big names. Like they were kind of the first on-screen video game personality reviewers, right?
Yeah, Adam Sessler is great.
And people remember
I love that.
People attach themselves to that.
Yeah. Man, good times with that G. I love that.
Now, right, like you can say many other names, like people, like so many other names, thanks to YouTube, are popular because of that, because they got, with those personality-driven reviews, like Total Biscuit, the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Because there are the people like, example, because
you broke
the
up.
Angry Video Game Nerd. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so Angry Video Game Nerd is more of a. It's still kind of his own thing because he's still kind of stuck in the past, even though he's reviewing more modern games. Because, we've reached the time Xbox 360 games and PS3 games are turning 10 years old. So, it's that weird phase now that he starts reviewing stuff that's more recent than NES, which was what started with. But then you have people like, let's say, I guess Kadikaras kind of counts because he
absolutely.
does. Yeah, so you have Kadikaras. You have doing the PlayStation stuff. Once in a while, also to the Switch and other things. But and then you have the completionists who looks at the games way differently because he actually reviews how much is worth it to actually complete a game. Going, doing everything. And doing everything that the game has to offer,
and then
which is honestly kind of cool. I can't say that I necessarily watch videos of his on games that I don't know, but it is fascinating to see him, actually go all the way to complete a game. When other YouTubers are like, hey, you know what? I didn't really care for this game, so whatever. I'm not even bothered with the extra stuff.
And then,
so that's interesting.
And it's interesting, like, because you had, like I mentioned, like, we had Total Biscuit before he passed, right, where he would take a more in-depth approach to PC games, mostly was his focus, and he would take a very in-depth approach on a big joke surrounding his channel was options menus, right? Like he would take a very big approach to that. Like he wanted games to have plenty of options, and he wanted to, have that accessibility and everything, and make sure that that accessibility and that all of those options for people to play around with and play the game in the way they wanted to play it was there. Like that was a big thing for him, and he would critique games on that basis a lot. Again, it's just
Yeah.
you have all those different personalities now, and I think G4 in some way
Like,
probably helped inspire that somewhat.
yeah,
Being what it was,
probably.
it probably paved the way
If
for that.
I because if I can point to two people that to two video games that I really like. One of them is called Nitro Red, and his shtick is basically that he's focusing mostly on platformers and horror games.
Mm-hmm.
But also his thing is because when I say platformers, it's not just the big ones. Like he did Mario, but it took him a while to get to Mario. He's doing some of the stuff that people consider niche. Like
Yeah.
have you ever read? So have you ever heard Vex?
Say again.
Vex.
Vex.
VEXX.
VEXX. I have not heard of Vex. I don't think.
It's a platformer from the PS2 era.
Definitely not heard of it.
Okay, but so basically he reviews which are more obscure and stuff, not necessarily the main, but it does look into that and say, you know what, maybe we missed something here. And even if a game is not necessarily good, it does say, but it did this. Maybe another developer can, do this idea again. He actually looked at stuff that people would read out because it's not a big name, and says, actually, we kind of missed something here. Maybe with another chance, this could be something.
I mean, that was a big thing. Like you said, it was PS2, correct?
Yeah.
Like the PS2 had so many games. Like there's so many games that I just missed. Like I didn't even know Vex was a thing on the PS2. But I mean, that's the thing, right? Like there were so many. Like we kind of miss that nowadays, right? Like there was just so many games for the PS2. You look at the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One nowadays, and you can keep up with a lot of the games that are coming out. Like sure, there's indie games that will still fall through the cracks at times, but the bigger names are very easy to keep up with now because they're just so few. Back in the day, you had your AAA titles and your big names, but you also had your what I think a lot of people started calling your B titles. Like you have your B movies, well you had your B games. Like they were a little bit buggy, they weren't perfect, they had issues, they were flawed, but there was still a lot of heart put into them and a lot of time and effort put into them, and there could be enjoyment gotten from them. Like Legend of the Dragoon was kind of one of those, if I'm not mistaken, kind of B games. Like it wasn't one of those big major titles that a lot of people know or even heard of at the time.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that that's it looks at platformers and
You're going in and out a lot.
So
Might need
hold
to
on a second.
reset. Yeah. While he's gone, ladies and gentlemen, he's back. Maybe that'll help reset things. Hopefully.
Yeah, but so again, I'll repeat again. Nitro Red, check out his stuff.
Yeah.
And then another video game YouTuber who's my favorite YouTuber in general. Some call me Johnny. He basically reviews everything, like every console, every generation, everything. But his shtick is that he's just a guy with a coffee mug playing a game and telling you maybe you can give this one a shot. And there's something about that approach that is that he just has basically no bullshit in his videos. He just tells you what he thinks, even if it's not the popular opinion. But he's also funny, he's informative, and he's actually got me into a lot of franchises I like. So yeah, some call me Johnny. Look him up, subscribe to him, worship him because he's the best.
Okay. After us, though.
Okay, we are not a toenail compared to some call me Johnny.
You might not be, but me though.
You are not as well. You did not compare yourself to Johnny. Johnny is the best.
No, he compares himself to me.
You did not insult the great the Juan John Johnny Ortiz. You did not.
You're right, I didn't. Because that would be insulting me, and I'm perfect.
Wolf, I'm going to have a conversation with you after we're done.
Nah.
Okay.
You can file your complaints with the Berkcast PR department. Feel free.
I am the Berkcast. Your lack of logic, it hurts me a lot.
Moving on. Back to games.
Back to games. Okay, you know what? We were talking about like niche franchises. Is there a franchise that you like but you feel like it doesn't get the attention it deserves?
Do you mean niche genre or just niche like a niche game series?
Like a game series, because genre you can pretty much every genre has its peak in a sense, the thing that catches on.
Well, it's not. Have you ever heard of a little game called Dark Souls? No.
That's not niche though. Everybody knows that.
I mean, at one point in time it was niche, but you know, for Demon Souls when that came out, that was niche, and then Dark Souls came out, and then it blew up. But I think one little game series that it's way more recent. It's not very old, but it's a game series that I haven't seen a ton of people get into. I've heard some people talk about it, but not as much as I think probably could or should maybe. It's a series, if I'm not mistaken. The developer behind it all is named Ken Gao, and it's To the Moon and Finding Paradise. Like, it's not an inherent series, but they are connected games. Okay. But I do think those games deserve more recognition for what they do, right? Because they take
what genre are they? What are they about?
They're not a genre. They're kind of, I guess you would say they're a little bit. It's, I guess, kind of visual novel-y, I guess, maybe. I don't know what to call it, to be honest. Because it's mostly a game where you're kind of following a story, and there's a little bit of gameplay, but not much. But it's done in the old 16-bit era, 32-bit era games, right? Like that style of game, like those old Super Nintendo looking games, Like it's that's the style, the art style it goes for and tries to emulate, but it's not like, an RPG like back then. It's very much just you walk around, you talk with people, and you solve, some light puzzle options, but it's mostly just you're there to experience this story and these characters. Mm-hmm. I'm probably not selling it at all, but genuinely the story and characters are probably more worth it than anything else in the world because it's just extremely well written. Like that's the best that's the thing about it.
Maybe it's one of those things that the best way to recommend them is check them out for yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. At the very least, watch something on them on YouTube because they deserve that recognition. Like, the developer behind it is a mostly solo, person, I think. And, they deserve the recognition. Absolutely. Because at very least the writing in the games are just spectacular. Is just spectacular.
Yeah. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for that. But I played a lot of games that I can consider niche. That maybe not all of them are all that well known. But if there's a series that I really think deserves more attention these days, it's Gravity Rush. Mm. I love Gravity Rush.
Agreed.
To those who don't know, this is a PlayStation franchise. It debuted on the PS Vita, a console that is no longer with us.
It still exists. What are you talking about? I still own my Vita.
Okay, you still own your Vita, but does Sony care about it?
The better question is have I played it in the past year? The answer is no. Mm-hmm. It's dead.
But
it died.
Yeah, but basically, Gravity Rush started
Rest
as
in peace, Vita.
So Gravity Rush started as a PS Vita launch game, which was also considered the killer app for the thing. for a while, and then
This is
it was
why it
ported to the
died.
No, it wasn't. Uh,
No.
and then it was then ported to the PS4, and also got a sequel to the PS4. Both
Mm-hmm.
are great, both are unique, have a charming as fuck protagonist that you should all love. And if you don't love her, you are an asshole, confirmed. And they also look beautiful, fantastic soundtrack. Again, very unique gameplay. If you can play them, please do. You you can find them for cheap. It's really a steal. You can't go wrong with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, you bring it up. There's something that I think died that didn't deserve to die. The Vita, Sony's handhelds. Like Sony needs to treat their handhelds better. They make such good
Yeah,
handhelds. The Vita is a genuine. Having owned one, the Vita is a genuinely good handheld. And I wish Sony wouldn't just decide we're coming out with a new handheld, yay! And we've done nothing for it in like 15 years, so it's pretty much dead. It's like,
yeah. Like I
oh,
think, and the sad part is that I think it
the
was
Vita only
kind
still
of like
lives because of like weird Japanese niche games
yeah.
that you can
That's the
get
thing
that you have to import.
that's also the reason that's something people also said about the PSP, which as a console it was a great piece of technology,
Yeah,
but
well,
Sony just didn't push for it.
I, the PSP to me for the longest time was the Monster Hunter machine. That's where I got my
Hmm.
first introduction to Monster Hunter personally, and I fell in love. And I've played Monster Hunter ever since then, right? Like, now it's pretty much I switched over to playing Monster Hunter World, right? But that was my Monster Hunter machine. But that's all it was for me because that's really all it had back then. Unless you wanted to buy those weird like, hey, you can buy movies for the PSP and watch these weird movies on it that
Yeah, I didn't get that. Like that
I
apparently
did it for one. That was it.
The Vita's the Vita's big selling point at one point, which when it came out, it apparently came bundled in with Spider-Man 2, the movie,
Yep.
on like a cartridge, and I'm like, okay, Spider-Man 2 is a great movie, but why should I watch it on a tiny game console and not on my DVD player at home?
It's weird, right? Because that was kind of like the first now we have these streaming services where you can watch all these different movies on your mobile phone, right? And or TV
Yeah,
shows on your mobile phone. Like that was kind of the first on demand, like on the go kind of like you can watch it on a small screen, but you can
actually,
watch it wherever you want.
do you remember the Game Boy Advance episode stuff? Like
Oh
they would
God,
release episode.
yes. Wow.
Like
Taking me
there were
way back.
episodes of the yeah there were episodes of the Fairly Odd Parents and Sonic X and
That is
other
right.
stuff on the Game Boy Advance cartridge, and it was so
Weird.
compressed.
Like that was a
But
weird choice that people decided to make and try out, but I'm kind of glad they did because it's just a unique thing that you'll never see ever
yeah,
again.
and it is a piece of history. Like you look at it, and it's like what that was kind of a bit ahead of its time,
It,
considering that you can watch
I mean, it was
everything on
dumb at
your
the time
phone now.
too, but
Yeah,
it didn't work at all. But yeah, like it definitely was. Like it was one of those unique pieces of history where someone tried this, it didn't work out at all, but man, were they on to something looking back now.
yeah. Like I said, ahead of its time.
Mm,
But yeah,
just
so
like
the
the
PSP.
Nintendo VR machine.
Let's not, please.
Or the Nintendo Power Glove.
Oh yeah, the Power Glove. I remember that.
Taking you way
Actually,
back.
you know something? Yeah. Do you remember the Wizard?
Yes, I do.
My God, the Wizard. Like,
Mm.
I love this movie just because for how much of a commercial it is.
Oh
It's
yeah.
amazing. It's like I made an experiment, and I watched that movie with my parents. It was on TV like one morning, and I told my parents, want to watch a movie, and they're like, okay, sure. and they found the plot and everything. But then they tell me, "Hey, HC, look, they mentioned the Ninja Turtles," and "Hey, HC, look, they're playing Mega Man," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. That's that's what the movie is about. It's about advertising those games.
Yep.
You are watching an advertisement."
Yep.
Oh my god, this movie.
That's what made it fun,
And
though, looking
also,
back. Like, it was stupid. It
yeah,
didn't really work out. It was kind of a terrible movie, but at the same time, it was kind of a great movie just for what it
yeah, but
was.
and again,
That's kind of
keep
like
in mind
a
that
lot
at the
of video
time,
game movies.
Mhm. Video game movies. Actually, if we are talking about video games, might as well. Any video game movies you actually like?
Do you mean like as in I think are good, or like as in I like them
Like,
because they're just so bad they're
let's
good?
go with legit good because there are plenty of
Oh,
they're so terrible they're
that's
good.
that's hard though. That's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Crap. I don't think there's one that sticks out in my mind as, yeah, this is a video game movie I actually liked and wouldn't mind seeing again.
The only two I could have said it for were one, the Prince of Persia movie, but I could
Eh.
only say it back. But there's the thing that I could say it when I first watched it. When I tried watching it again years later, I'm like, man, this did not age well.
No.
So that's out. And I would also say the Ratchet and Clank movie, but then again, I'm aware of the fact that it's a fan service movie. It's not when you look at it at face value, it's not a good movie on its own.
I honestly, I think the best video game movie we've probably gotten is Wreck-It Ralph.
Well, that doesn't count.
I know.
It's not really based on
I
anything.
know. So, like, if you want to ask me video game movies, I think people should absolutely watch. Not because they're good, mind you. Go back and watch the old Street Fighter movies.
Yes.
Do
Oh,
yourself a
yes.
favor. Watch those movies
Uh,
because the overacting is wonderful, but it's great. Like, you can tell, like, no one was trying,
Bison.
but people were trying, and it's just a wonderful, terrible, right?
Bison, you're off the air. That movie is so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And then, actually, people would actually say that the Mortal Kombat movie was a good movie, and I'm like, I don't know. I didn't really like that one.
I'm kind of the same way. It's kind of it has its moments, but oh, I'm trying to think. What other video game movies are there?
There was Doom. I haven't watched it. I just
I've
remember.
seen that
I
one.
just remember.
It has it's literally nothing to do with the game.
Yeah.
You've watched it. What did you think about the Tomb Raider movie, the newer one?
The newer one.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? The newer one I actually kind of like. It's not great, mind you, but it did its job. It reminded me of the game, but it also did its own thing. The actress playing Lara Croft, I forgot her name, but she did good. As they do actually present some, they do actually recreate some stuff that's in the game. It was actually a good movie. I had a good time watching.
We should mention it. People will probably get mad at us if we don't. I've not seen it though, so I can't say like whether or not it's good or not. But Detective Pikachu, I've heard very
Oh
good
yeah,
things about.
yeah. Actually, what? Detective Pikachu is also.
So
It's
that's probably
not.
one of the better video game movies.
I'll tell you this: it's not a masterpiece by any means. Like people will tell
Mm.
you, "Oh wow, it's the best video game movie ever made." It's like you need to realize it doesn't have much of a competition.
Yeah.
But but at the same time, not to take away from it. It's a charming movie. It's funny. It looks good, and Pikachu's adorable, even if it has Ryan Reynolds' voice. But it was actually a good movie. I'm
I'm
surprised.
sure the Minecraft movie will do better.
Sure.
But you know what? I did think of one, a video game movie series that I actually do enjoy and like. Not because it's so bad
Mm-hmm.
it's good, just because I genuinely enjoy it. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment. But the
Okay.
Resident Evil video game series, I actually enjoyed that.
You talk about the movies, not the games
Yeah,
themselves.
the Resident Evil movie series, I do
Yeah,
enjoy and like.
that's another one people say that they enjoy, but
It's
it's
very
not a
little to
very
do with the games, but I still like it.
like I heard that people say that the early ones are fine.
The other ones are probably
Uh,
closer to the games, yeah, but it's still very off.
but because I remember, I don't remember who this was, but I remember when they supposedly released the final movie, like it was called the final chapter or something, and
Mhm.
people were like, "Oh, thank God!" like so,
Yeah, it
so
kind of went a bit off the rails after a certain point, but I still enjoyed it. I still liked it. They were still, I guess you would call it a guilty pleasure at that point, I suppose. Like, they were my guilty pleasure. I still liked and enjoyed them. If anyone asked, why are these movies still being made? Who watches them? Hi, I did. I liked them.
I personally didn't watch them, but I have a few friends who might want you dead. So,
They were fun.
like, I
I'm
heard
not going to
that
say they
one
were
of them.
good, but they were fun.
I heard that one of them. I'm not sure which one it was. That people said that if the movie didn't use slow motion that much, it will probably last 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. One of the movies. If I don't remember the name of it exact. I don't remember which one it was, but I think I know exactly which one it's referring to. A lot of slow motion.
well,
Lot of slow motion.
but
And those movies in
but
general are like the big thing on, slow motion cuts, just where slowly watching a thing get further and get closer and closer to you, and just cutting back and forth, and just the slow motion. Just God, they drug out some scenes for so long,
if you say so.
but I loved it.
But okay. Actually, because we talked about video game movies, there are a lot of story-driven games these days that
Mm.
kind of rely on you, the player, to make choices that influence the story. What kind of games of this genre did you play?
Oh, actually, To the Moon somewhat kind of fits that. It's
Okay.
still like, your choices don't change much in that game. It's very much, you're going through a set story. The
Hmm.
choices you make are very small and minor, and they only change a few things, like what character you're using at any given point, right? So they don't change a lot. They might change a few lines of dialogue, but that's it. The general story,
Hmm.
you're going to see the exact same way every time. But they do kind of fit that genre a little bit. Yes, I've played a little bit. I haven't finished it, of Life is Strange, and I've
Life is
seen
Strange is good.
Life is Strange 2,
Mhm.
and
That's one episode away from being done.
yeah, I've seen the first episode. Didn't play it, but did see it. Not a fan
Hmm.
for Life is Strange 2. Gonna make some people mad, I'm sure.
Like I don't I like it so far,
Not
but
saying
I
it's
do
bad,
I.
just saying that I think, right, the way the game's very heavy-handed in that first episode with the message it wants to get across, and I think the way it does it is very forced and trips over itself a lot just to kind of give you that message, right?
Mhm.
That's my
Okay,
quick review
fair.
of episode 1 of Life is Strange 2.
Like
that does not
the
that
other
does
episode.
not encompass my full opinion on that game in any way, or get across like anything meaningful, but it's very heavy-handed, I feel, and I think it does it in not the best ways.
Okay, fair. Some narrative choice games that I enjoy. As a PlayStation guy, I played the David Cage games. I played
Yep,
Heavy Rain.
they're great.
I played Beyond Two Sons. I didn't play Detroit yet.
Neither have
This is
I.
one I need to get to that one. But I enjoyed Heavy Rain back when it came out. It's aged a bit.
Jason.
Yeah. No. It's Jason, Jason. Uh, Great game.
Silly,
But
but great.
yeah. It has a moment of silliness, but there are some plot holes in it.
I mean,
Like,
it's a David Cage game. Plot holes are a
yeah,
given.
but
That's not that's not a oh it has some plot holes. It's okay. It has some plot holes though. That's unexpected. No, it's David Cage game. Plot holes are expected.
actually, you know what? I recall enjoying Beyond Two Souls when that was out, but I don't remember it having plot holes per se.
It's disjointed because of the way it tries to tell its story, right? Because it wants to skip around and give you all like, hey, here's you know Ellen Page look like when she's young, but here's Ellen Page look like when she's way older. Like it's the it skips
Which is
around and it
interesting.
kind of hurts itself. It's interesting. Like I'm
It's
glad they attempted it.
it's
It's not
not
the best
just as
execution.
it's not just as an attempt and execution though. There are like depending on what endings you choose, she does say that she can't view her life in chronological order. She just starts skipping around the events in her life.
Eh.
So there's like a story justification for that.
Again, I think the execution of what they were going for kind of falls short. It's interesting at the very least, but it still falls short.
Yeah.
Like many
But
of
I
David Cage's games. Interesting,
but
but
yeah.
definitely falls short.
Yeah, but another Cage game, but a Sony exclusive one, Until Dawn. Despite not being a horror fan, I really enjoy Until Dawn.
Yes. That's the David Cage game done right.
Yeah,
But
basically.
because it has no David Cage, that's why. Like,
Yeah.
I like David Cage's games, but he kind of gets in his own way with a lot of his games too.
Mhm.
Like it says something that, and you'll hear everyone refer to Until Dawn that way too. Like I've never heard a single person talk about Until Dawn and not say like it's the David Cage game done right because it doesn't have David Cage. Like everyone says it that way.
Yeah,
Everyone.
but
No one doesn't talk about that game and doesn't say that. And it says
yeah,
something about David Cage's games when they do that
yeah, basically.
because he
You
does get
know
in
the.
his own way.
Mhm. Yeah, when Detroit was a thing, people were like, "Well, it's a David Cage game. I can't wait to make fun of the story and all the holes it has."
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, because that's kind of expected. Which it doesn't mean those games are absolutely terrible. They're not great at
Oh
times. They have
no,
their
but
issues, but they can still be fun. Like I said, like Heavy
like
Rain,
because I think
I liked. I
because I
think
think
Heavy Rain was
yeah,
probably one of his better games, personally.
yeah. And when you also think about Heavy Rain, the story, plot holes aside, there is an interesting story to it.
Yeah.
Because I remember when my PS4 is currently in my room, but the PS3 was in the living room, and my mother would usually sit down whenever she was in the living room. She would get into some of the games I played,
Mm-hmm.
and she actually got into Heavy Rain when I played it, and when she found out that spoilers for Heavy Rain if anyone cares. When you found out that Scott Shelby is the origami killer, she was actually taken aback. She was like, "No, I like this character. Why?" so there are ideas and there is emotional stuff that he can get across
Yeah.
because, as I just proven, but then when you actually sit down and think about it, it starts to fall apart.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, on a surface level, it's good and it's enjoyable, but when you get any deeper, or when you have experience within the genre or with storytelling, like you kind of see the cracks and the falls and the missteps and all of it starts to add up eventually into this. Well, it's a mess, but it's a workable-ish mess, you know.
Mhm.
Which is interesting in its own way. Like it's funny that a game that his games can still be made right in today's day and age in a way, right? Considering what a lot of games have turned into, like his games still get made, like his studio still exists, his studio can still make games the way they make games, and they're one of
Yeah.
the few that can do that. It's a rarity. It's a rarity that I wish wasn't a rarity because I wish more people could do what he does because I would love to see other takes on it. Because, like you said, Until Dawn exists. That had nothing to do with him, but it's one of the better
And
games in that style.
also, and also there are multiple choice games like Infamous, for example,
Mm.
that
Well, a lot of games have
they
just kind of thrown in multiple choices with multiple ending stuff now, right? That's common
looking
in a
at
lot of
you,
games now.
Shadow the Hedgehog. You suck. Go cry in a corner, you piece of shit.
Like,
I hate that game if it wasn't
Witcher
obvious.
3 has
But
that. A lot of some of your Ubisoft games has it. I think Assassin's Creed Odyssey has some of that now, right?
hmm, okay.
Weirdly
Assassin's
enough.
Creed is one of those franchises that I always try to get into. Like I always said, okay, this is going to be the one game I'm going to start with, but I never get to them. And nowadays there are so goddamn many. I have no idea
I
how I'm
mean,
going
at
to
this
get
point,
to.
the story doesn't matter anymore. If you want like the original story, just play the first 3, and then there's
Like
your original
what,
story. After
like
that, the story
what,
no longer matters.
what the thing that I do want to try at one point is like get the PS4 Ezio collection.
Yeah.
That's two Brotherhood and Revelations, I think, with
People
Ezio, because
generally
people
consider those
say,
some of the best. I think
yeah,
that's mostly because Ezio's character. Everyone really just loved Ezio.
voiced by Roger Craig Smith, aka Sonic the Hedgehog. Woo! I just ruined the franchise for you. I'm not.
I don't play it anymore, so you're fine with me. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, but
The best Assassin's Creed game though, that this one you don't need to play any other one for because the story at this point no longer matters, is the pirate game.
the fall.
It says Assassin's Creed 4 on the box, but it's really just the pirate game. Don't look at it
Yeah,
as an Assassin's Creed game because there's no assassin things in there. No,
yeah,
it's just a pirate game.
that's what I heard. That it says Assassin's Creed, but
It's
it
one
was
of the
basically
best
like,
pirate games I've ever
hey,
played.
yeah, but because people said like, hey, people like the ship gameplay in Assassin's Creed 3, so let's make a full game out of that.
Yeah, but
That's what I heard.
they made a multiplayer ship game where it's just the ships. People liked the idea of being able to drive your ship, and yeah, they fucked it up. Like people said, we like this idea. Give us more of this, and then they said, oh, you mean you want multiplayer ship game? No, we wanted the pirate part of Assassin's Creed just to be a full pirate game, not a multiplayer ship game. Ubisoft, what are you doing? How did you get it so wrong after you got it so right the first time?
Yep, tell me about it.
But yeah,
Um,
the story of games.
uh,
How did you get it
yeah, but
so right the first time to get it so wrong the second time?
yeah. Actually, what do you think about games that start with one company and then move on to another one?
I think that's fine personally. I think you can do that. What's a big franchise that's done that
Unless,
before? Trying to think. I guess.
one that did it and only benefit for it, I think, is Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Because
Well, I like
the
the new
original,
Tomb
the
Raiders.
first,
I know a lot of people don't like the new Tomb Raiders. I enjoy them.
I enjoy them too. For what they are.
Yeah, like
The,
they're definitely not
and
old Tomb Raider, right? Like old Tomb Raider was way more puzzle heavy, right? And new Tomb
yeah,
Raider's less so. Like the puzzles are way
the
easier.
mhm. Like they are playing a half and half like Uncharted does, which
Yeah.
is ironic because by the way, I love Uncharted. Uncharted
Mm-hmm.
is amazing, but in general, Naughty Dog is an amazing developer, and
Mm-hmm.
Last of Us Two was just delayed, but I'm so looking forward to that because the first Last of Us is one of those. This is not a game. This is an experience,
Yeah.
if you ask me. And but anyway, back to Tomb Raider. The original developer, Core Design, they messed up. I think people remember the Angel of Darkness and how terrible it ended up. but
I didn't
but
hate
after
it,
that,
but yeah, it wasn't the best Tomb Raider game, that's for sure.
this was a very very clear case of it was rushed. It
Yeah.
was rushed. It wasn't It wasn't ready. People didn't get the technology. You can tell every
Yeah.
problem they had at the development of this thing. Like They were ambitious. I'll give them that. But so Core messed up with that. So IGAS, the holder of the IP, moved it to Crystal Dynamics, and they're still making those games to this day. And if you ask me, a good change, because after the Switch, I got into Tomb Raider more. Like before Tomb Raider Legend, which was the Crystal Dynamics' first game in the franchise, I didn't really care for Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I was into it, but I never really stuck with it. I played a few here and there, but that was it. Like I remember playing the first Tomb Raider on PlayStation, maybe, and some of the other ones after that. But I never really, again, like you said, I never stuck with them though. But the new ones, I've played all
I,
three. I really enjoyed
you
them.
know, I'll say that when I said I didn't care for them much, it's just I never really got to try them out
Mm-hmm.
beforehand. I I did try them out, and they are definitely aged, but for the time they were great.
Yeah. So, um, let's do this then. Let's ask a question because we're kind of just meandering on here and there, which that's fine with this kind of podcast. There was no specific way to not meander
Yeah,
somewhat. So let's ask a specific question
true.
though. A game series or a specific game that really stuck with you, that even now playing it,
Ooh,
that even now years later you still remember it because it just stuck with you,
well,
or a portion of it really
uh,
stuck with you and really stuck out to you.
do you want to take this one or?
Yeah, sure. I can go first if you want me to. I have two right off hand that I think really stuck with me and still stick with me even now.
Mhm.
So the first one was Kingdom Hearts. I'm going to
Okay.
probably make a lot of people go ugh. But yeah, like Kingdom Hearts was a game that I had never heard of, didn't even know existed until a friend was over at a friend's house and they had it, and I said, "Hey," and I asked them what it was, and they said, "Oh, it's a JRPG with Final Fantasy and Disney." I'm like, "Huh?" They
Yeah,
said,
that's
"Actually,
basically
it sounds
that was
better
the
than
first
it
reaction of.
it sounds." And their immediate reaction was, "It sounds better than you think." I'm like, "Okay, mind if I borrow it? I'll try it out." And they said, "Yeah, sure, go for
I
it."
think I think you meant it's better than it sounds.
Yeah, better than it
Not
sounds. Well, better than they made it
it's
sound.
it sounds better than you. I like that sentence. I'll use that if you don't mind.
You're welcome. But yeah, like I took it home, I played it, and surprisingly, yeah, I fell in love with it. Like, yeah, the story's nonsensical. I'm not going to stand here and defend like all the different parts of Kingdom Hearts to you, but personally for me, I just fell in love with it, and it's stuck with me as a game, and it's since
Mhm.
then stuck with me as a game series. I've not played the third one yet, just because I don't own a PS4. I'm going to change that eventually, but
Mhm.
yeah, that game series has stuck with me ever since. I've played Kingdom Hearts 1, I've played Kingdom Hearts 2, I've played a lot of the side games. Not all of them, but some of them at least. And it's just stuck with me. Like, those games
Okay.
have stuck with me. After that,
Um,
another game that I mentioned it earlier, To the Moon and, Finding Paradise, especially Finding Paradise. Those games will
mhm.
probably stick with me for an extremely long time as well, just because of their stories and what they tell and how they tell them. And just, I think, right, those games, to me, exemplify something you can do with games that you can't do with any other medium. And that's telling a story through the interactivity of the game, right? To the Moon and Finding Paradise exemplify that in a way. Not as much as there are others out there I think it do exemplify it more, but being able to tell a story through interactivity is something that, movies, television shows, books, no other medium can do that. Games can. And that's interesting. That's important. That means something. And it is a way to tell a story that, again, just nothing else can compare to. The idea of, like, a great example of this is Bioshock. That's a game that I think will stick with many people with the, spoilers, would you kindly? You cannot tell that kind of story. You cannot do something like that in movies, in television, in books. That does not work. But in a game, it does. And that's something that's stuck with me. Like that idea of interactivity, of playing with expectations in that way, of saying you did this as the player and here's why you did it. And making you question that, making you challenge that. That's interesting. And that's why, some of that has stuck with me. And that's why I still play games even now, because I want to experience more things like that. It's a shame that a lot of developers don't give that, but that's what I want to experience.
Okay, fair. You got me interested. So,
You're welcome.
in terms of me, like getting left version, like there's basically a list, but if I can choose a few,
Go
so
ahead.
like I said, Rayman 2,
Mm-hmm.
starting off with that, because I think it really shaped like how in terms of its outside, in terms of its music, in terms of the world, in how it controls, how it plays. This is what I think of when I think of a good platformer.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I think and also just everything about it. I just love it about it. And another game like my other favorite game of all time, next to Rayman 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Just Sonic jokes aside about me, there's a reason. There's a reason Sonic is such a big part of my life,
Yeah,
and
sure.
this game is so good. Is so good. It's so because think of it that I can play through it 3 times in a row. With each character. One time with Sonic, one time with Tails, one time with Knuckles, and then like take a break from it for like a month, and then do it all over again. There are so
Absolutely.
many there are so many ways to get to the end, to the goal. Like the levels are huge. There's so much to do. And I think this is the first time like a game really rewarded me with something when
Mm-hmm.
I went out of my way to get all the chaos emeralds and the super emeralds. You get an extra final stage, which gives it a good ending. So it actually felt rewarding to get something from collecting everything. So that was the first time that happened to me in a game. And also for a 2D game, the story is pretty evolved, and I just love this game. And and like I said, The Last of Us,
Yeah.
most definitely,
Understandable.
The Last of Us. Like I'm not much of a horror person. I'm never into zombie stuff, but I gave The Last of Us a shot because it was Naughty Dog, and I love Naughty Dog, and I just, like that game got me to cry the first 20 minutes I was playing it. People who play the game know what I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about. Like, and it just got more and more personal and painful as it went on, and that was one hell of an experience. I will never forget it. There are
Absolutely.
a lot of other games that left a huge mark on me, but if I have to choose three, it will probably be those three.
That's completely fair. Um, one other question we can kind of roll into. What?
Something kind of
Oh, go ahead.
a thought. You mentioned indie games. What indie games did you play? Because there are so many
Well,
nowadays.
To the
Uh,
Moon and Finding Paradise, I think definitely count for that. Um,
uh,
let me.
Also, when I mean indie game, that includes Kickstarter project stuff.
Sure, sure. Banner Saga is one that I've played through. I haven't played the second or third one, but they do exist, and that completes that trilogy. And those are definitely, I feel, indie games that are really enjoyable. They're kind of a turn-based strategy game with a story kind of adventure thing going through it. Kind a little bit of visual novelty, but also very much turn-based strategy more so than anything else. Very fun, very enjoyable games, very artistic games, right? Very artistic, yeah, like extremely arty games. Like really just some lovely art in that game. Absolutely great to look at. Other things I've played.
Actually, before one other game that really left a huge impact on me that I have to bring up is Insomniac's Spider-Man game.
Mhm.
As a big Spider-Man fan, I was looking forward to that one, and it like succeeded my expectations by a kilometer.
Mm.
That's such a great game. Like this should be an example, in my opinion, to superhero games going
Yep.
forward.
So speaking of indie games,
So,
and oh, go ahead. Sorry.
so yeah, just want to point that back to indie
Oh,
games.
sure. All right.
Go.
Speaking of indie games, a game that, and also like I talked about earlier, like playing games for that, and the storytelling, using the interactivity, right, to affect you even more. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. I think that's definitely more or less an indie game, somewhat. And that game definitely uses the interactivity in order to affect you, you know, as the player or players, considering you can play that game multiplayer in a weird, unique way. Like, it uses that storytelling, that unique storytelling aspect that games can provide in a way that can hit you hard, right? And I think that game does accomplish that, and that's definitely an indie game that I think people should absolutely check out. If you're into the more strategy side of things, because I definitely play a lot of strategy games as well. Grey Goo was fun. That was definitely an indie game. If you're into kind of the more boss rush type game style stuff we've been getting more of here lately, Jotun. I absolutely,
Yeah.
Jotun. Jotun. I absolutely recommend Jotun. That is a very fun but hard. But when you accomplish things, like, it definitely feels rewarding, right? Like, it's one of those games where you might have to bang your head against the wall a lot, but once you finally get through the wall, once you finally overcome it, you feel like an amazing person at the end of it. You might have broken a few
Okay.
screens and a couple of controllers, but by the time you finished, you just feel amazing.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
It's not that
Uh,
ragey, but I definitely like it. Can be a hard game. One that I
um,
also that and this is why I love indie games, right? Because you would never see this in a major title. Thomas Was Alone, a game that is literally just about shapes and tells a story about shapes and makes you care and love and fall in love with shapes. Shapes.
Shapes.
Just
Okay.
like you'll meet a circle and you get the personality and story told to you about this circle, and it's just great, and you're like, oh, this circle's great, he's adorable. And then the circle disappears, like, oh, I want the circle back though, he was great. Like, it makes you care about shapes, and it's just a simple platformer game is all it is, but it makes you care. It's a simple platform puzzler game, but it makes you care about shapes. Like, that's great. Like, that's interesting, that's amazing, that's unique. Like, I'm
Okay.
glad I played through that.
Okay, so in terms of indie games, like I played like the first one that like comes to mind that I actually bought and played was the Binding of Isaac,
Mm,
the
another
Rebirth
good one.
edition. Yeah, really, really fun game.
Not something
Took
I'm
me, it took,
personally too into, but definitely a good game though.
being Jewish, it kind of a few spots,
Oh,
but
sure.
it is kind of fun seeing something based on that.
Yeah.
It's not something you see,
No.
but
And I think that's what makes it interesting, right?
mhm. So that was an interesting one. Another one, I didn't back this one, but I did buy it in a pre-order, and it kind of disappointed me. Well, it was Ukulele.
Mm.
Because this was with a spiritual sequel to Banjo Kazooie, and I actually think that it downgraded Banjo Kazooie in a lot of
Isn't there a
ways.
new thing
So
coming out for that? Is it a new
yeah,
game or an expansion?
like it's a new game, which from what
Supposedly it's
I've heard,
better.
yeah, from what I've heard, it's better because it tries to be more Donkey Kong Country
Mm.
than Banjo Kazooie, but maybe I'll give it a shot. First one I was first, but actually a platformer from Kickstarter that I really liked is A Hat in Time. This
Mm.
was great. I love The Hat in Time.
A great platforming game, yeah. Absolutely. Like, that's I'm not a big platforming person, but even I enjoyed that one. Like, it's just
Yeah,
a really enjoyable and
it
fun game.
it's oozing with charm, and
Hmm.
there's a little girl yelling
She's
down
adorable.
with the mafia. like
It's all
how
it's
can
all
you
very
not
adorable.
how can you not love a game with the yelling down with the mafia? How can you not love it? So yeah, that's a good one. There's a franchise that I really like. It's not necessarily indie because the developers are way who do have have a lot of projects with companies like Nickelodeon and Disney and stuff. But this is like an original franchise from them, and one of the games was Kickstarted, so it kind of does count as indie, and that's Shantae.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you never heard of it.
No, I know of Shantae. I've not played any of the Shantae games, but I've at least heard of Shantae.
Okay, so I will say I never original one on the Game Boy Color, and from what I've heard, I'm not missing much considering the games that succeeded it. But Risky is Revenge is cute. Pirate's Curse and Half Genie Hero, great. Like if you want to play Shantae, get those two. And there's a fifth one coming out soon, which I'm really looking forward to as well.
Anything else? I have two more I might
Just
mention.
Shantae is awesome. That's what I'll tell you.
Fair.
Another like an indie game that I want to bring up, not because I played it, but because I was so disappointed by its reception. Mighty Number 9. Oh boy! As a Mega Man fan, that hurt. That hurt.
At least the Castlevania Kickstarted thing did really well. Bloodstained Symphony of the Night, that was really good.
Yeah, so I saw Sam Call Me Johnny's review on it, and he actually said it's going like, oh, thank God, something that actually turned out well.
Bloodstained turned out really good. And the Castlevania anime's done really well too, so that's nice.
Yeah.
I've not watched it yet, but I've heard good things.
I watched the first season. It was really good. I need to get to the second one.
I need to watch it in general, so it's good to hear that you liked it. I'm glad. That gives me good vibes.
Like Castlevania is one of those franchises that I never really played for myself, but I was always interested in the story around it. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Any other indie games?
I
have two I'll mention.
Okay, go ahead.
To give you a bit of a break that I didn't mention earlier. Firewatch. Definitely a story-driven game, and mostly, I guess people refer to, if I'm not mistaken, as walking simulators nowadays. That's what that game mostly is. And absolutely love it. Like, if there's ever a game where if you think voice acting can't sell a thing, if you think voice acting doesn't matter, Firewatch proves that wrong. Because if it wasn't for, it's just two actors in that game, that's all it is, two VAs communicating back and forth, with a third one that comes in later. But between those two, they sell it. Their back and forth, their banter, their interactions, they sell it. Like, that game will prove to you that VA work, that good VA work, matters. It matters exceptionally so. If you don't have good VAs, like, good VAs can sell even bad games at times. If you have bad VAs with bad games, sometimes they can't sell it. But or at the very least, good VAs can still sell a bad story, right? So
definitely.
But Firewatch does have a good story though, so we're good there as well. But yeah, definitely recommend Firewatch for at the very least just the VA work, if not the entire thing, with just being a really enjoyable and interesting, unique story. After that, Night in the Woods was very enjoyable, very fun take on an interesting piece of Americana, I guess you would call it, right?
Okay, one last indie franchise going up because I feel we kind of need to, and it's not a franchise that I personally, again, not a big fan of horror, but Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh God.
I want to bring this up for the sole reason that even though I haven't played a single game,
I know what you're gonna say.
What am I gonna say then?
That you know everything about it, because that game, genuinely, right? I will admit, I watched a lot of the different theory things that people came up with for those games. I've never played a single game, not one, never touched them.
I if I'm going to be specific, the game
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all of MatPat series.
yeah.
So yeah, I
He
told this to
sold
a
that game.
friend. Yeah, and you know something that I'm not sure about this, but there's like a parody thing on YouTube, which is like, which like a bunch of videos that people like. If this company was honest with us, like for example, if Jeffrey Katzenberg, the CEO of DreamWorks, was honest with us, then every second sentence he would say would be "fuck Disney." Or if Disney were honest with us, they would actually tell us that they are banking on our nostalgia and stuff. So they did something like this with Scott Carter and actually being honest with his audience. I
Yeah.
haven't written the story, and the end says I haven't written the story for my next game yet. I'm waiting for MatPat to do it for me. And when you think about, that's pretty much what's going on.
I mean, he did sell that game, right? And he made it enjoyable to explore a game that I don't think anyone really cared that much about.
I won't say this because if you know what, if you want to put it on YouTube, they sold it. I will say it's Markiplier with
Oh
his
yeah,
LPs.
yeah, sure. Like, yeah, he definitely helped sell the game, but he helped sell the game. MatPat helped sell the
The story around
idea,
it, the
the
lore.
idea of a world. Like, Markiplier might have made it popular, but MatPat helped to maintain
Yeah,
it.
but the thing is that I think MatPat he didn't really want to do it. This was something fans kind of asked him to do, and it just kind of became a thing that okay, a new FNAF game is announced. I need to get to work now.
I mean,
And
it became a big
for the,
seller for him as well, though. Like, it helped establish and popularize his brand too,
yeah,
in a way.
and dear God, one of the funniest things is that every time he says like, "This is my final theory. This is the final Five Nights at Freddy's video I'm going to make," and then all the Calcutta
Here's
game
5
ready.
more.
Yeah,
It's
and it's
like,
like,
we see the cash cow that is there for you. I don't blame you at all. I completely understand, but it's very
how many
much.
times? You know something? I can probably play a drinking game with for every theory we solve it, or I've rewritten everything, or I started from scratch. Like you can actually play a drinking game with how many times he says it, and because there are so many enough games coming out, and he's like, and I'm pretty sure when the movie is like, there's enough movie to those who it's coming out sometime, and yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to lose his mind over that one too, because he's actually taking the FNAF books. There are books into account.
Yes, there are. Somehow.
So yeah, I actually did. I never played a single level all of those games, but I know everything that's
Yep.
because of the game.
I don't even care, but yet I cared still. I know all the story and lore about those games that I need to know, and I've never played a single one. And I don't care to either. I don't even know why I cared enough about the story, but again, it's just, it was sold. Again, MatPat, I'll give him credit. He sold it in a way that made it interesting, and that's important.
The thing is, though, that you still need to take into account that what MatPat says is in his.
Oh yeah, it's all his opinion, right? Like it's all
Even though Scott did confirm that the first theory he had on the second game, like where he says that in his opinion the purple guy, the murderer, is the phone guy that talks to you. Apparently Scott Cotton has actually confirmed that this theory is for the most part correct.
Yeah, but I mean, again, right? Like, my point is it doesn't matter what is right or wrong. It matters is that MatPat was able to sell his version so well, and it made you want to learn more. Even though you probably weren't interested, even though you probably didn't care, you did want to learn more because he sold it so well.
Yeah, like again, I didn't those games, but I just
It's
started.
genuinely right. Like, I think, another YouTuber that does this kind of theory crafting and storytelling is, and he's very much more so into the storytelling aspect, is Vadi Vidya. I don't know if you've ever heard of him or seen him, but I absolutely
And
recommend him. If you're a
the
Dark
name sounds
Souls,
familiar.
if you're a Dark Souls fan, you'll immediately know who this is because he pretty much sells the Souls games, right? He comes up with stories for characters. He explains them, their backstory. He has an entire series that is called Prepare Not to Cry, where basically he says,
Okay.
here's the tragic backstory behind this Dark Souls character. You're going to hate the fact that you have to fight them in a boss fight and kill them now because now you're going to feel really bad. So that's his entire series. And it's, again, he's an exceptional story crafter. He knows how to sell you a story. And what he's telling you may not be exactly canon, right? It may not be completely true. It's mostly his version of stuff, but it's told
But
so well that
yeah, but
you
it's so
don't
good
care
that
if it's
might as
wrong.
well.
You want it to be right, or it might as well be right because it's told so well. And that's important. That means something.
Yeah.
That can absolutely change. Like, and
Okay.
again, like that definitely, I think Vadi Vidya probably helps make Dark Souls more popular than what it is somewhat. Because I guarantee you there's probably a lot of people who've watched his videos but never played the games.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, we talked about indie games, we talked about movies.
I suppose here at the final bit, we could look towards a bit of the future, like anything in particular that you're
Actually,
expecting.
one video game franchise I do want to give a shout out to because
sure.
I do want to make a series out of it one day, like an Outcast reviews about this games. Is the Deponia franchise.
Point and click.
Which,
that's not something we mentioned a lot of. There's a bunch of great point and click games out there.
Which is basically the reason the reason I want to point this out is because so first of all I do want to that shout out to our good friend Haddock for introducing me to that franchise. If it wasn't for her, I would probably not be into it. But the thing is that it's a series of quest games, like kind of like traditional adventure.
It's your traditional point-and-click adventure game. It's what it is.
Yes, yeah, that's what it is. But the thing is that, for one, you have the protagonist who is basically the most asshole-ish person you can.
If I'm not mistaken, the Deponia games are, in a way, the spiritual successor to the Monkey Island games, are they not?
I'm not that familiar with Monkey Island.
Play Monkey Island. I think you would enjoy it. If you enjoy Deponia, I think you might like Monkey Island. If you ever get the chance to play them.
But the thing is that, so again, you have the protagonist who is such an asshole, but you care for him. You start caring for him as the series goes on. There are 4 games there, so you start caring for this asshole, and you have no idea how they did it. But the other thing that I kind of like about it, because usually with games of the sort, you need to figure out the logical solution to move with the puzzles. Like you say, oh, there's an ice wall, so I should melt the ice with fire, for an example. Like you need to think logic. But what's the charm of this? The charm of this is, in my opinion, is that you need to become the character. You need to get inside Rufus's dark mind and convoluted mind and figure out solutions that a normal person would never think.
That's not a good thing, though. Like, a lot of people make fun of that. The point and click adventure logic of, hey, I have this item, so I can use this item in a way that you would never think to. It's like
it goes overboard.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like I have it's kind of the MacGyver effect, right? Where, I have this broom handle. So I'll use this broom handle to kill this snake, then to take this snake and use it to turn this lever because I couldn't use the broom handle for that, to then
It's
swing to
Wolf.
then drop down a rope that I can swing across this gap on. And it's like, wait, what?
Wolf.
No, I
Wolf.
know.
Trust me, it gets weird.
Oh yeah, but I'm just using
With
that's a very basic example. It's way more strange than that. But yeah, like that's kind of a trope of the point and click adventure genre where yeah, you just inane solutions to very simple problems. But that's what makes
yeah.
it fun.
But yeah, so I do want to shout out Deponia. It's you know, it's a great it's a great uh, point and click adventure series that to those who are interested, and it's some very dark sense of which is sometimes appreciated, and honestly, just a good time. I basically marathoned all games, and I had a good time. The fourth one is a bit, but overall, great.
Good to
And
hear.
I might actually do an outcast about those. I need to talk to Hans because it won't be.
Fair enough. I guess to end off for this little segment, for this episode, what are you looking towards in the future? Future game releases, anything
Um,
that's coming that you're interested or excited for.
well,
I know you're going to say The
well,
Last of Us 2.
that's an obvious one. I do want to pick up the new Medieval remake. This is a game
Mm-hmm.
I missed on the PS1, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested in trying out the remake.
Yeah,
I'll get to
it's
it
very fun. I
eventually.
think you would like it.
I'm trying to think. Well, I said there's a fifth day game coming, so I'm interested in that one.
Oh, what now?
Um,
Repeat it, please.
the next Chante game.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's one I'm looking forward to. And well, there is a new Sonic game announced. It's most likely going to be the 30th anniversary game.
Another
So,
bad Sonic game.
You shut up. I hope it's going to be one of them because there's a trend I'm noticing. The 10 and 20th anniversary games are good. The 15th and 25th games are the ones that are like, about, with the exception of Mania. Mania is great. So hopefully the trend continues and the next game is. Considering the fact they announced it earlier this year and it's probably not going to come out until 2021, which is the 30th anniversary. I
have
want
enough
to
time to
hope.
work on it, at least.
Well, and the thing is that with some of the recent Sonic releases, the thing I'm worried about is not the times I have to work on it; it's the design mentality.
Yeah.
But hey, I'll wish them the best luck, and that's really all I can do.
That's completely fair. Anything else you're looking forward to?
There are stuff I'm looking forward to, which just hasn't been announced. Like I can tell you that I'm very excited to see what Insomniac has in store for a Spider-Man sequel, which I know is going to happen. I want to see another Sony franchise. So I want to see there's Horizon Dawn. I'm pretty sure they're working on it. I'm pretty sure they're working on a sequel for that, and I'll see how that goes.
I still need to play the first one.
Yeah, the first one. I think you like.
Oh no, I know I would like it. I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like the better version of a lot of Ubisoft games. It's like, hey,
One way to look at it.
I mean, they do take a lot from the whole. Ubisoft created the whole like, hey, climb this tower to reveal parts of the map. Like, Horizon Zero Dawn has that, but it looks to me like it's a little bit more enjoyable, right? Because your towers to explore them to reveal parts of the map are basically tall, walking giant mechanical giraffes. Essentially, it's just a unique take that makes it that little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah. No, it's a great game.
Yeah.
Really great game. So yeah, so Horizon Zero Dawn is really good. I want to see a sequel to that. There are some revivals I'd like to see at one point, be it a sequel or remake to see how it will do. But there are a lot of stuff. That's the basic point. Anything you're looking forward to?
Oh, I mean, the quick thing is, it's been announced. We already know it. It's coming out. I think soon, very soon. Pokemon Sword and Shield. Definitely looking for that. I'm a Pokemon fan. Pokemon's been with me ever since it came out in the 90. In I think it was 98, 99, sometime around there.
Maybe.
Again, like ever since Pokemon originally came out, I've been a Pokemon fan. I've played a game from every single one of the generations of Pokemon. So it's always stuck with me. I can't not buy a new Pokemon game. It was announced. We have no idea when it'll come out, but we've seen a little bit of it. So I'm definitely excited for Breath of the Wild 2. Right? It's gonna be years before we ever see anything else of that game. But I definitely can't wait for that one.
Yeah, we just know it's coming out.
I really, really, really hope that Nintendo finally allows us to actually play as Zelda. That would sell that game to me immediately. Like, it wouldn't matter. Anything else about that game would not matter. If we get to play as Zelda, I'm in. Instantly in.
Well, do I have the game for you? I'm kidding.
I mean, I know, what is it? Hyrule Wars exists. You can play as Zelda in that, so that's great.
Okay, I wasn't talking about that.
And they have, I think it's called Linkle, the female version of Link, which is adorable. That's great. And then there's always Smash.
But since I said it in such a teasing voice, that
you have to tell us.
People know what I'm talking about. Because they would actually be pissed at me if I mention this.
Well, now you have to mention it.
You know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
The CDI games?
I know. I was just going to try and get you to mention it.
Okay.
Yeah, the CDI games.
It was just a joke. Was just a joke.
Oh, no, I get that.
Stay away from those pieces of shit as far away as you can.
Other games I'm looking forward to. I can't wait to finally. I don't own a PS4 or an Xbox One, so Red Dead Redemption 2 will be nice to go through on PC. I've heard that game is an interesting one, since I've heard people who will tell you it's amazing, I love it, and then people who tell you it has some good stuff, but there's things that I kind of don't like about it. And then that game also sparked an interesting debate about how far we should take realism in games, which is interesting, right? That game kind of sparked that debate, which I found interesting, and I found it interesting that a lot of people brought up the idea of Red Dead Redemption 2 goes too far, right? Which is interesting, right? I found that interesting, but I can't wait to play for it through myself and experience that for myself and see what I think. Another game that I'm really excited for, it's not going to be fully out, but it's coming out into early access, and I'll probably still pick it up just because I love this game and this series, the Mount and Blade series. Specifically, the game that's going to be coming out in March is Mount and Blade Bannerlord. I love this series because it's basically an open world kind of RPG-ish thing, and it says there is no story. It's just kind of, here's this world, go and do what you will. If you decide you want to, become a king, well, you can do that. Go off, start your own kingdom, and take over all the other kingdoms. If you decide you want to just be a roaming mercenary and attack whoever and do that, you can do that. Have fun. If you just want to play this game as, I'm a trader, I go from different town to town trading things, you can do that. It doesn't matter. It's just, here's an open world, have fun, do whatever. I kind of like that, and I've had a lot of fun with that. So I can't wait for the next game in that series to come out and be able to play that one, because Bannerlord looks great. It's been, I think, 10 or 12 years, but finally, we get something for Bannerlord. After that, anything else that's coming out that I can think of?
Something that actually popped in my mind, Ghost of Tsushima, or whatever it's called. It's the new It's the new Sucker Punch game, which I'm looking forward to because I love Sucker Punch. They're great.
That game looked really interesting. Yeah, I agree.
I think we watched its reveal together.
I think we might have, yeah, with the E3 thing.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it was with you. Oh my god.
I don't know how if you're looking forward to it. I'm interested to see what people think of it. I don't know if I'll play it, but I'm at least interested to hear what people think. Death Stranding, the new Kojima game coming out on Sony
Yeah,
PS4.
the new Kojima game. You know, here's the thing. Besides the idea that it's Kojima, I don't really have a lot to know about it.
I mean, there's
Like,
nothing
in
to
terms
know
of-
about it. It's just it's all you need to know is that it's a weird Kojima game. So
Yeah, but at the same time, is this enough to buy a game
no,
for?
but it's a weird Kojima game.
And here's the problem. And here's the problem. Like, I can't buy a game. Just
Have you
because
played
it's
any
a
of
weird
Metal Gear?
Kojima. Yeah, I did.
All right, well then, yeah, you know enough about Metal Gear to know what you're getting into more than like with Death Stranding. Except this is probably going to be even more out there.
Mm-hmm.
Your vibrations
Well,
from your phone can't cut me off.
Yeah, well, it didn't try to.
The
I
weird
hope.
baby game will maybe be popular. I don't know.
When is it supposed to come out again?
It
I
comes
know
out
it's
this
coming
year.
out.
I think it comes
This
out.
year.
Yeah, it comes out November, I think.
Oh, so
Yeah,
it's like
November
right around the
8th.
corner.
November 8th. It's literally within the next 2 weeks.
wow.
That's going to be interesting. I can't wait to hear what people think.
I might not pick up the game myself, but man, do I look forward to seeing what people will think about this one.
Another game I'm really
Uh,
looking forward to that I can't wait to see how it all turns out is the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah,
This will
I'm
probably be
interested in
my
this one.
chance to really actually play through Final Fantasy VII. It'll be
Same.
interesting to do this now. It'll be really interesting to kind of go through Final Fantasy VII and then take a look back at the older versions. It's going to be really interesting to hear people who've played through the older versions come to the newer version, play through it, and see what they think. Especially since like this isn't the full Final Fantasy VII game, from what I understand. This is just the like first disc of Final Fantasy VII expanded and made to a standalone game, and they're basically doing that for kind of all of Final Fantasy VII. They're like taking that 4-disc game and saying, okay, it's not going to be 4 discs. We're going to give you just the first disc of Final Fantasy VII, except it's going to be 4 discs of the first disc. I'm like, what?
Yeah, this is.
You're going to make like a series out of Final Fantasy VII. Okay, interesting. I hope this works out, but interesting.
I hope so too.
This is going to be. It's probably going to be. People say like, Marvel is the greatest cinematic universe thing to ever exist. I think Final Fantasy VII is going to beat it if it manages to succeed.
But it's not cinematic though. It's a video game,
Yeah,
not a movie.
but at the same time, you have cutscenes, so cinematic.
Okay.
Also, you're taking a 4-disc game and timesing it by 2, so at the end we're going to have like multiple, actually timesing it by 4, it seems. So we're going to have like 16 discs.
We'll have to wait and see, I guess. Well, anything we might.
The new Animal Crossing. I have to, mention that new Animal Crossing game. Can't wait for that. Animal Crossing is, I don't know why, but Animal Crossing is kind of like my go-to. Like, this is my I'm going to wrap myself up in a blanket and just lay here in bed for the next week and do nothing but this. Because that's just, it's, that's my game. Animal Crossing is one of those weird things of, it makes you want to pay bills, right? Because that's what you do in Animal Crossing. You collect things and do things to get money to pay off your debt.
Yeah.
But it makes that enjoyable in a weird way. I don't know how. It makes paying debt enjoyable. How is that possible? How is that possible?
Apparently it is.
Also, I'm interested in Watch Dogs Legion. for the simple fact of being able to, play as grandma and kick ass. That's silly. I hope that's enjoyable as it seems like it will be. And then
Mhm.
finally, I think a lot of people, personally, I think a lot of people are definitely looking forward to Cyberpunk 2077. I'm kind of on the fence. I hope it'll be good. I'll definitely pick it up, but I'm not in a rush for it if I'm honest. What about you?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like, Watch Dogs was never really a thing.
No, it's fair.
So,
I played the second one.
like,
I kind of enjoyed the over the topness of it, so that's why I'm interested in Legion for more of that over the top nonsense.
yeah, and like the thing is that when Watch Dogs was first revealed at E3, I was one of those odd ones that was like, I'm not impressed. Like nothing about it grabbed me in any way. And then when the
Mm-hmm.
and and then when the game came out, and all of a sudden people were like, "Oh wow, that was a disappointment." I was just like, "Eh." I didn't even buy it. Like I wasn't interested at all. And then people say the second one is way better. I'll take their word for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It's still not something that I'm really interested in picking up and trying.
That's completely
So
fair.
but if you enjoy it and you're looking at the third one, I hope that you'll have a great time with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we pretty much covered everything that there is to cover in the short time we have.
I'm
So
sure there's plenty of other stuff we could have covered and definitely didn't cover, right?
yeah, this
But
is this is probably worth a part two, but
well,
maybe later.
you could probably do many parts for just video games alone, right? But I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's video games. They encompass a large. There's so many different genres, so many different things you could talk about. People spend hours just on one video game talking about it and going into detail on it, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Like hello multi-series categories episodes on Kingdom Hearts or stuff like that.
Yeah. Or when he tried to play all of the original Mega Man games for one video, and then
Mm.
he had to split it into two.
But yeah, like so there's a ton of stuff you could talk about and do on video games alone. It's
Hmm.
it's a fun hobby. It's enjoyable. There's some amazing stuff out there. There's some not so great stuff out there. There's some middling stuff out there, and there's some really unique stuff out there. Give it a shot.
Indeed. Indeed. So, with that said, thanks for listening to this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What is your favorite video game? If you get into
Mm.
video games, what video games are you looking forward to? You can tell us all about that in the comment section below. On our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B C, and you can find us all on the Discord stuff that's going on. So, with all that said, I was HC,
I've been Wolf.
and we will talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.